The virtual worlds and 3D landscapes, all linked to a home trainer, have provided a vital link and connection for cyclists the world over for the past few months. While meeting up for a group ride together with your friends or even with some of the top pros in the world is great, we're craving live sport. And there is no doubt that virtual racing is here to stay. Hello and welcome to stage one of the ŠKODA V Women's Tour. 3 days of live racing action as 52 riders from 18 teams all around the world, from the relative comfort of their own homes and their very own pain caves, take each other on virtually in the first V Women's Tour. I'm Marty McDonald, and with me for the next 3 days is Joanna Rousel. Joe, everyone, as we've affectionately called it now, they're all in their pain caves. They're all getting set up, ready to race.
Yeah, the pain cave is very important. You're on your turbo, you want some really good ventilation, a fan, maybe even outdoors, depending on the weather, and set up with your technology as well. So these riders will have made a good effort to make sure they're comfortable and ready to race very hard.
Now, as we said, we had some racing at the beginning of the year before the world kind of went into lockdown. We're starting to get what looks like the road program for the rest of the year as we sort of come out of this time. But e-racing has been growing for the last couple of years, really, hasn't it? And it's very much here to stay. And I know you, as a rider, you would have loved this sort of racing.
I would have done. I retired a few years too soon, really. I would have really loved this sort of racing, and it has been growing a lot over the past couple of years. And having this lockdown worldwide has actually really given it a chance to flourish, and we're now seeing more of it broadcast. So it's a very exciting time for this virtual racing in general, and a great opportunity for the riders this week.
Now, before we get into the race action, we're going to hear from some of the riders that we're going to see in action.
I think it's super exciting. So for me, I'd already embraced virtual racing. I regularly used to race on my turbo after work in the last couple of years, and it was a super fun way to stay motivated, especially after a hard day's work. So the boom that we've seen whilst we've kind of been in the lockdown situation is great. I think it's a really great way to connect regular cyclists with pro cyclists. It's been a great way for us to stay connected as a team and with all of our sponsors, and also it's a super fun way to be able to stay motivated with all of the hard training sessions that we've all been doing whilst we've been waiting for the road season to restart.
Now, it's good to hear from some of our riders as they try to get some of the racing back up and running. Let's have a look at some of the riders that we need to watch this week. We've already had some test event. Let's have a look at our riders to watch. So we've got Lizzie Banks from Bigler Katusha, her teammate Emma Norsgaard, Sarah Story from Story Racing, Ruth Winder from Trek Segafredo, Mika Kroger, got Lucy van der Haar there, Ellie Gardner, Danny Christmas and Corinne Hall. Those are the riders to watch. And Joanna, they're very much, as we said, we had a virtual test event last week. They're all down there on the start line. All their avatars are in their team kit. Now, anyone that follows the Women's Pro Peloton, they're probably familiar with names like Ruth Winder, Lizzie Banks, who took a phenomenal stage victory in the Giro Rosa last year. She won our test event last week. But we've seen in the test events is giving riders like young Ellie Gardner there from Cams to Fosse, and a track rider that we would know in the UK in Corinne Hall to kind of showcase their talent.
Yeah, it's a really good opportunity for a lot of the up-and-coming riders. It's a relatively shorter race. It's going to be about an hour's worth of racing. And I think it's really exciting for the younger riders to sort of get this opportunity in the comfort of their own home, none of the sort of expensive travelling that you'd normally have, and the sort of tiring nature of that as well. And they can just race as hard as they can, absolutely nothing to lose. All out for an hour, basically. And once you're on the turbo, you're not going to be out the back, you're not going to be outside the road closures, all those sort of worries that you might have normally in day-to-day road racing. So it's actually a really unique opportunity. And like you say, I'm really looking forward to seeing how some of the younger riders and some of the track riders do against the big-name road pros.
Now, for anyone that's never seen this sort of racing or had a go on one of these platforms, we're on RGT. They're quite realistic, aren't they? The smart trainers have really sort of taken hold the last couple of years, and riding on one within this is remarkably realistic because it reacts to the hills, to the descents, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the smart trainers are brilliant, and I think until you ride on one, you can't really fully appreciate how realistic it does feel. You could be riding along on your turbo trainer on a flat section of road, and as soon as it goes uphill, the resistance comes straight on. You feel your legs lock up, and it really does feel very realistic. So these riders will get the full effect that they would out on the road in terms of the gradients out there in real life.
So here we got 4 riders lined up ready. We're going to go in and chat to some of them. I'm going to come to Lizzie Banks first. Lizzie from Bigler Katusha. Lizzie, you won the test event on Friday on this course. Does that give you some confidence going into this evening's stage 1?
Hello! I can't really hear you above the noise of my fan and my trainer, but I can tell you that it's already pretty hot in here and I've only just done an easy warm-up. So I think it's going to be pretty brutal today, but I've got that race feeling, I've got those nerves on the start line, and I really want to go for it. And as long as it's one of my teammates who crosses the finish line first, then I'll be happy.
Okay, we wish you good luck tonight.
Hello, Illy Gardner, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hello, yeah, all good here.
How are you finding keeping motivated during the lockdown, and how important to you is a race like this?
Virtual racing has definitely been a great motivator because, we're all eager to get racing again. So to have something, as close as possible is great. So doing races every few weeks is great, and having a big race like this especially, definitely motivated and makes us even more excited for the road season.
Excellent, thank you.
I'll come to Ruth Winder. Ruth, now this is something that I was talking about with Joe the other day. You're in Colorado, where the other riders are in Europe, and it's the evening. It's morning for you. Do you think this might be an advantage for you, being a little bit earlier in the day? Could this be something that sort of comes into virtual racing, the sort of time zones that riders are in?
Yeah, I guess. Though I am at altitude up here, I'm at pretty high in Boulder. That's dependent on the rider, I think. For me, definitely, I'm more of a morning person than a night owl, but as a diverse racer, we've raced at all times of the day.
Well, we wish you all the best. We'll let you crack on. We're not far away from the start now.
Hello, Marissa. How are you looking forward to today, and what sort of tactics or strategy can you have in this sort of racing?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the races. Some race adrenalines, and I hope to do good as a test event. And we'll see.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
We're not far away. We're not far away from race action. As you can see, a minute away from the start. Thanks for joining us. You can see the riders all in their team colours. As we said, 52 riders from 18 teams. You can see Team Breeze in the red jerseys, just on the inside here. So just as we get towards the start, we'll bring you up to speed with all of the teams and all of the riders. The Team Breeze are represented by Ella Barnwell, Amelia Sharp, and Anna Shackley. So 3 riders from them. Alongside them, you can see Lotto Sudal, those familiar colours. Tenchu Bikus, Danny Bram and Danny Christmas are representing them. But just 18 seconds, the anticipation. And this racing, on all the test events that we've done, if you've never seen the virtual racing, it can be absolutely brutal. Racing generally can go from the gun, but 5 seconds and accounting. We are almost ready to go, and away we go. And as we said, racing away from the start. The riders just settling down into their positions. Let's run you through your teams as they settle in to the bunch and get settled. So Bela Crush Pro Cycling. So we spoke to Marissa Bax there. She's also got Roos Hoogeboom. Laura van Regen Mortal is also in there. Buscaya Durango. So Lizzie Holden from Great Britain. Alice Maria Azufi from Italy. You got Cristina Martinez from Spain. They're just settling in the yellow and bright red colours. You can see Cams Tifosi, Illy Gardner, Katie Scott also rode well in the test event, and Joe Tindley. That is the makeup of that team. Drops, and the Drops team, Joss Loudon, Emily Meakin and April Tacey. So we'll pick out the Drops jerseys for you. They're bright colours. There you have it, the stripes. The red, light blue and dark blue stripes. Great Britain, and they are in the white jerseys with the red stripes. Megan Barker, Anna Doherty and Jenny Hall. Bigla Katusha, so alongside Bigla Katusha's Lizzie Banks is Emma Norsgaard. Maria Vittorio Sparotto is also in there. Bulls Dolman, you've got Jip van den Bos, Ava Björman and Katie Hall. Representing Kogas Metia Look Pro Cycling is Katharina Heckler from Germany. We've got FDJ, you can see there in the white jerseys with the blue shorts, familiar colours for them. Stina Borgli from Norway, Victoria Gwilman and Shara Marsh from Australia. From the high-tech products team, watch out for this team. Julie Solvang from Norway, Mika Kruger from Germany and Lucy van der Haar from Great Britain. The exciting NXT racing team, they're in the light blue and dark blue jerseys. You can see a kind of greeny colour there. Just at the right of your picture, we've got Rosemarine Amalan, Kathleen Holworth and Britt Carnarvon. From Rally Cycling, they're in their orange colours. Krista Dobell-Hickok, Leanne Ganser and Heidi Franch. Story Racing, those red, white and blue colours that you can see right on your screen. And Corinne Hall is the rider that's on the front. Alongside her is Lucy Gadd and Dame Sarah Story. From Tibco Silicon Valley, Lee Dixon, Kirsten Faulkner and Lauren Stevens. The green jerseys that you can see moving through to the front is the Skoda DSI Cycling Academy. Watch out for them. Megan Dickinson, Louise Gibson and Rebecca Richardson. And then from Trek Segafredo, backing up Ruth Winder, who we spoke to just before the start, are Taylor Wiles and Abby Van Twist. Those are the riders that you're going to see in action over the course of the next 3 days. And Joe, right from the gun, over 50 kilometres an hour already.
Yes, we've had a very fast start. A lot of riders putting out huge amounts of power. We're regularly seeing sort of 4, 5, even 6 watts per kilo on the left of the screen there, but we're seeing the riders watts per kilo there. So very fast start. These riders will have warmed up really hard, so they were ready to go from the gun there. Over 60k an hour now. This is going to be a very, very fast race, and I think the key here will be who was really ready to go, who was fully warmed up, or who is straight into the red already.
From the front here, Danny Christmas we saw, she raced very well in the test event. Mika Kruger that we also saw just towards the front as well. In terms of the anticipation riders, Dame Sarah Story at the top of your picture, Lucy van der Haar from High Tech Products, and then Corinne Hall just at the bottom of your screen on the right. Joe, Dame Sarah Story at the top, she had a bit of a mechanical in the test event the other night, but her and Corinne Hall, they're a great combination. And Corinne, double national champion in the points race, great track rider. She's a tandem pilot for the blind and visually impaired riders in paracycling. She's a bit of a dark horse, is Corinne Hall, for this sort of race.
She is, and the Story Racing team have got a really strong squad. Sarah Story is a power monster. She can bat out a huge amount of power for a long time. She's very comfortable on the turbo trainer. Previous swimmer at the Paralympic Games, so spent a lot of years swimming up and down a swimming pool, which isn't particularly entertaining. So I think for her, making a transition to doing, the bulk of her training on the turbo during lockdown hasn't been too much of a problem for her. She is really good at maintaining focus. She can put out a huge amount of power, and she's more than happy at the front of this bunch here trying to string it out. And then Corinne Hall, like you mentioned, brilliant tandem rider, but also very fast, so definitely one to look out for when it comes to a sprint at the end.
Lucy van der Haar in the centre was just in the chasing group the other night, the High Tech Products team rider. And Joe, Lucy's one of very few riders that's can list some victories so far this year. She was she kind of burst onto the scene with back-to-back junior world road titles in 2011, 2012. And this year she started the year phenomenally well, taking a stage in the general classification in the Dubai Tour. So Lucy in particular looks like a rider that kind of has sort of come back into the form that we saw a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. So like you say, multiple junior world champion, and then won the overall Dubai Tour back in February at the start of this year. So one of the few riders that can say they've had a victory this year, because there has been such little racing before the world sort of went into lockdown. And now we're seeing a big move here from Jo Tinley. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Lucy van der Haar gets on with this race. I know she's been training very, very hard, and she obviously has some brilliant form at the start of the season, and will want to try and use that as much as she can.
Jo Tinley from Cams Tifosi just making a bit of a move there, and again Jo is a rider you could kind of call Jo Tinley a bit of a trailblazer, really. Jo, as a rider, she was a national champion, she was on the national team, and it was kind of the City Centre Tour series that we have in the UK that sort of saw Jo come out of retirement and start racing again, and she just seems to, at the moment, she's just again getting better and better every year.
Yeah, very experienced rider. So when I started racing at the age of 16 back in 2005, Jo Tinley was already a national champion, really good crit rider, really good track rider, and she was someone that I always looked up to. We were teammates for a few years as well, and I enjoyed road racing with her as well as racing on the track, and she's someone that I could learn a lot from, and it's brilliant to see her racing still. And I always say that you can't buy experience, and if you've been racing for that long, you do just learn more and more each season. You learn more about bike racing, and you learn more about yourself as well, and how to train, how to peak for events, how to get the best out of yourself physically and mentally. So she's a very experienced rider, and absolutely one never to discount.
Now, for anyone that's tuning in, we've got the riders' names down the side. So we've got Danny Christmas on the front, Lizzie Banks is up there as well, Heidi Franz. It swaps over all the time. Jo, for anyone that's looking at this data, because if anyone out there is a data geek like I am, how does someone interpret the data? Because power to weight ratios and that kind of thing, it's super important in cycling, and this is quite unique for us. It's almost like Formula One, being able to see the riders' power output in real time.
Yeah, I love a bit of data myself. So when you're cycling, we measure our power output in watts, and power is a combination of strength and speed. So in general, the more watts you're putting out, the faster you'll go. However, when you're cycling, if you're on the flat or in a velodrome, your aerodynamic drag makes a huge difference. And out on the road, certainly going up hills, your body mass makes a huge difference. So here we're looking at power to weight ratio. So this is quite simply the watts each rider is putting out divided by their body mass in kilograms. So before the start, every rider will have to put into the program their body mass. Really important to be accurate on that, and no cheating. And then the watts per kilo is simply their watts divided by their body mass, and that is what's crucial in road racing, and that's what sort of makes it an even playing field between the sort of the bigger riders and the smaller riders.
And from this aerial shot, you can see we're starting to get a little bit of a whittling down of this front group. It's Marissa Bax who is on the front from the Bela Crush Pro Cycling team. Marissa and her teammate raced very well in the test event. Laura van Regenwortel, the Dutch riders from this Bela Crush team. Marissa Bax was second behind Lizzie Banks. It came down to a sprint. Katie Scott and Illy Gardner both attacking towards the end. Corinne Hall was also up there, but just give you that top 10 from the test event. Lizzie Banks, Marissa Bax, Illy Gardner, Lauren Stevens from Tipco was up there. Katie Scott was fifth, Danny Christmas, then Corinne Hall, Emily Meakin and Laura van Regenwortel came in. But this group just starting to thin out now. Sarah Story just getting on to the back of the group. As April Stacey, Joss Loudon comes up towards the front of the group. So no real big attacks yet at the moment, Jo. Everyone sort of seems to be reacting to each other, but the group just thinning down very slightly from the look of the aerial shot.
Yeah, definitely. So it has been really hard from the start, and we have already got a whittling down process here. So I think we'll see a lot of wearing down, especially in the first half of this race. There'll be riders that have gone straight into the red and just won't be able to hang on. And when you get dropped on a virtual race, you can't be doing any sort of drafting really. Once you're gone on the turbo, it feels incredibly hard to make that power output to get back. A little bit different in real life when you've got a character chase, but incredibly hard virtually. So we'll see riders going out the back, and we probably won't see them again. And there'll be riders here with the tactic of basically making it as hard as they can from the start. We've seen quite a few familiar names up the front of this group putting out huge amounts of power. And it really has been a very hard race from the start, and I think we'll see a relatively small group of this original 52 starting riders as we approach the finish.
One rider worth of mention who's just very much to the front of the leading group is Meg Dickerson from the ŠKODA DSI Cycling Academy. She's in the green jersey. Meg Dickerson, very good time trialist. Is Meg, and she's with this ŠKODA Academy under the tutelage of Dame Sarah Story, and also Director Sportif Adam Blythe. Kind of burst onto the scene last year in the UK, did Meg, with some great times in time trials. Does a 20-minute and 15-second 10-mile time trial. Got a silver medal the last year in the circuit time trial championships. And Joe, for riders like Meg that are kind of coming through along with the other riders in the ŠKODA Academy, Rebecca Richards, I know he's got designs on a pro career. Louise Gibson is another rider in that squad. But we've seen teams over the years that have looked at virtual racing and actually given riders a go on their road programs, because sometimes when a rider's in a lab where we do get a lot of testing, some riders don't test well but they race well, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's the thing with virtual racing. You've sort of got a combination of the two. So going back for years in cycling, lab testing has been common. We've done ramp tests, we've done peak power tests, we've done capacity tests, all sorts of different testing on a turbo trainer, which hurts a lot, or to sort of see what numbers people can put out and if they've got the sort of potential. And that's how I was talent spotted back many years ago. It was mainly based on tests on a turbo trainer, measuring power output. So it is really important, but having virtual racing as well, it really brings up the competitive edge, which not everyone has got that. Not everyone can really dig deep when it really matters. Not everyone's got that little extra couple of percent that make all the difference on race day. So virtual racing sort of combines the two. You can get some really good, interesting data to analyse if you're sort of a bit of a numbers geek and if you want to use that to look at riders' potential. But you can also see who's got that competitive edge and who can really dig that little bit deeper on race day. So it is very interesting and an interesting tool for talent spotting that it'll be interesting to see how it's used more in the future.
Look at this group now, really starting to get smaller and smaller. April Tacey, Katie Scott, you can just see it swings backwards and forwards. Lizzie Holden in there, you see the Isle of Man flag flying proud for Lizzie Holden. Good to see her in there. So just moving around this group, we're just seeing how many riders we're getting in there as the Lotto Soudal colours come straight through to the front of the group. Danny Christmas gets up there. Danny was attacking all the time in the test event, has been looking strong over the course of the last couple of weeks. Anna Doherty, Emma Norsgaard also in there. Emma Norsgaard, another rider, if you're looking at riders that sort of hit the ground running at the beginning of the year, she had a great start to the year. She had a stage win down in the Tour of Valenciana, also took third in Haagerland earlier on in the year. Danish rider, former national champion is Emma Norsgaard, so fast finisher. Also in there, Roos Hogeboom is well to the front. Heidi France also up there for the rally cycling team, so good to see those rally cycling team jerseys in there. This leading group, Emily Meakin, Meg Dickerson, well back towards the front, so it's Bigla Katusha that are the next team to attack. And Bigla Katusha, they had some great news today that they announced, Joe, that they've got a new sponsor in Paula Carr, who've backed the team for the next few years, which is great during a time where some teams and sponsorships have been looking just a little bit sketchy. It's great news for them.
Yeah, it really is great news. I think any company investing in sport, and especially from my point of view, investing in women's sport, it is always really good to see. I think you can get sort of great value for money, great return for a sponsor, and it's really good because they are a very strong team. Obviously, we've got Lizzie Banks there, a British rider, who I'm really keen to see how she develops over the rest of this season and next season as well. So it's great to know that the team has got that backing and they can sort of continue to develop riders and race at the highest level.
I mean, for me, Lizzie, last year, the victory that, or the way that she rode in the Giro Rosa last year, she had kind of come onto our sort of radar through the women's tour, then went to the Giro Rosa, took a stage victory there, and then switching from there earlier on in the year, Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, one of the early season classics, which was won by Annemiek van Vleuten, taking a top 10 there. She was 6th in the Omloop earlier on in the year on the cobblestones of Belgium. She's starting to sort of develop into this really sort of a real all-rounder, because she showed some great power here in her sprint the other night.
Yeah, well, it was just a couple of seasons ago that she was racing the British National Series and winning there, and racing as part of the Story Racing team. So it's been fascinating to see how she's developed over this last couple of seasons. And she's someone that I was particularly looking forward to watching. And also sort of a question mark over whether she could be part of the Olympic team for Tokyo, which is now obviously going to be 2021, not 2020. But she is developing really quickly. She is not afraid to get stuck in. She loves going on the attack. And that's really important in cycling. I think it can be easy to be overawed by reputations and feel that if you're in a big race you can't attack because you're attacking big name riders or something. So I think if you come into the sport and you're not afraid to get stuck in, she's done a lot of hard work for her teammates in other races that we watched last year, but when she's had the opportunity for herself, she's grabbed it with both hands, and she's been strong over a variety of courses. So it's interesting to see how she will develop. This test event that we had last week for this, she won it in a sprint at the end, so that's also really exciting. She's not just a sort of a climber breakaway rider, she has got a good turn of speed as well.
She has indeed. Corin Hall is on the front of the group. Heidi Franz from the USA and Rally Pro Cycling still very much to the front. Danik Brahm from Lotto Soudal also in there. Colours of drops then. The orange jerseys of Rally. Leanne Ganser back up towards the front for Rally Cycling. Got the Great Britain jerseys in there. Meg Dickerson still sitting very much to the front of this one. April Tacey is the rider that's in there as well, so good to see her up and running. Lucy Gadd coming through from Story Racing. Lucy Gadd. We're going to check in with Director Sportif Simon House from Camps Tifosi. Simon, you got to be happy with the way that the team are racing in this one. We got Illy Gardner on our screens, and the team's looking phenomenal in this virtual racing.
Yeah, we're delighted. It's going to be a tough start. The parkour at the beginning is very, very hard. So the goal was to keep all three riders in that main group so that we could come to the finish together. So yeah, delighted.
And how, in terms of going into this as a director sportif, normally as a director you sit down in the morning, you go through the course, you tell the riders the wind direction, you put the tactics in place. Is that possible with virtual racing as well? Do you give them a pre-race chat as well?
Yeah, it certainly is, and actually we're still in communication now. So I've got an earpiece in that's actually to the riders. So each rider's got an earpiece in themselves. So we're talking to them throughout the stage. We're using Velo Viewer as you would in any race, and it's no different apart from the wind and the rain. So, but yeah, everything else is no different.
And in terms of the road calendar as we start to emerge from the lockdown, how are the team plans looking going forward?
Yeah, we were always planning. We're looking at races, stage races, and races in Europe. It may be that we start to base ourselves in Belgium, for example, where we know the Kermes racing has started, and then we'll look at races around Europe after then. So we're looking for a good calendar end of season. It'll just be later in the year, so we're just sort of moving everything back. But logistically and planning, as we all know, is pretty challenging at this moment in time because obviously not everything is 100%. So it's coming together.
Well, we're enjoying watching the team in action. We wish them all the best this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Brilliant. Thanks. Have a good. Thank you.
So, and speak of the team, Katie Scott. There's those yellow and red Camps Tifosi jerseys. Dame Sarah Story now comes up towards the front. Leah Dixon gets in there as well. So it looks like Some of the teams have got all 3 riders represented in this front group. We're picking out Lee Dixon, Kirsten Faulkner and Lauren Stevens. It looks like they're still in this group for the Tibco Silicon Valley team. Joss Loudon is on the front for Team Drops. It's good to see her up there. Lizzie Holden, now riding for Biscaya Durango, is Lizzie Holden. And getting a little move now. Danny Christmas puts in an attack, and Leah Dixon, British rider from Tibco Silicon Valley. We heard from her before the start, and you can see straight away, Joe, that the riders are reacting. The pace definitely on now. You can see it's hitting just over 30 kilometres an hour. We've got 14.63 kilometres covered, 23.6 to go. Illy Gardner reacts, totally relentless at the moment.
Yeah, that was a big move there by Danny Christmas, but a big response there from the Drops team. Joss Loudon now over 10 watts per kilo there we're seeing on the left of our screen, bringing out a sort of 15 metre gap over the other riders. Big responses there, but big initiation of attacks there by Danny Christmas, and I think we're going to see some fireworks now.
This is it. You can see this group just getting steadily smaller. You can see the gap that riders starting to lose a few metres here, 10 metres or so just to a few riders. But Leah Dixon, Joss Loudon, Danny Christmas, Meg Dickerson are the top 4 riders. Emily Meakin, Katie Scott. You can just see that group. You can, from that head-on shot there, starting to lose sort of 20 metres, 25 metres. So that attack, Joe, has had quite a devastating effect on that group. Some riders starting to lose the sort of 20 metres plus.
It really has. So even if that attack hasn't quite made it, it really has sort of shaken up the group, and you will see a lot of riders that were already on their limit, and that might just be a little bit too much for them to be able to hang on to the group at the moment.
Kristen Faulkner on the front here. So Danny Christmas just on the back of the group there, just you can see out of the saddle, bit of power. And Amelia Sharp just on the outside, and Lisbeth de Vocht is joining us, the director sportive from Lotto Soudal. Lisbeth, Danny Christmas, Joe Rousel, my co-commentator, has termed some riders power monsters. Danny Christmas is looking phenomenal in these races.
Yeah, I think she loves it. She always, at tests also, she had high averages of watts per kilogram, and she shows it here. So it's, I think these races really suit her.
And for you as a team, how have you managed the time through this, keeping the team together and keeping them motivated?
Okay, we have been doing some video calls regularly every 14 days, also with looking at some races that are ahead of us in autumn. So we are already prepared for the races that are coming.
Well, we're enjoying watching the team in action. We wish you all the best. We will let you get back to keeping them going.
Okay, thank you.
Lisbeth de Vocht, Lotto Soudal ladies. You can see Danny Christmas out of the saddle, the aerial shot there of Danny Christmas. Marissa Bax, Dame Sarah Story is on the front. Emily Meakin still there. The Great Britain jersey comes flying up towards the front of the group there. Just to see them getting themselves back in there. Next rider to go, Illy Gardner just on the outside of the group there. Lizzie Banks starting to move. Joe, we're starting to see some familiar names from our test events. Marissa Bax, definitely exciting young rider from this Bila Krush team, just 21 years old, from the Netherlands. The aerial shots, Amelia Sharp. Leah Dixon just moves up on the outside. Lots of British and American flags in there at the moment. Emma Norsgaard from Denmark in there, and then that sole Isle of Man flag from Lizzie Holden. And one thing we got to remember here as well, Joe, of course, the 3 days, normally we would have a leaders jersey awarded at the end of each stage. We have got virtual leaders jerseys, aren't they? So the winner of the stage today gets that virtual leaders jersey to be able, for their avatar in the game, to be able to race tomorrow.
Yeah, they will. So that's pretty cool, and it will mean that we'll easily be able to see on the screen who is the race leader, who is the GC leader. It will help that the team managers, the director sportives, have a sort of good view of what's going on as well. So I think that's pretty cool. We sort of got some normality there from a normal sort of out on the road stage race. But I'm finding it quite interesting hearing from the director sportives and thinking about tactics and how that can sort of come into play in a virtual race, because for me, in road racing, I think a lot of the strategy sort of comes down to looking at the other riders, looking at body language, sort of being able to get a feel for how other riders are feeling and whether they're suffering or not. And you can't really get that same effect in virtual racing because you can't see the riders in real life. So having the DSs there, being able to communicate with their riders, could be quite key because they're able to watch it all on screen as well.
So Katie Scott is the rider on the front. I think we're going to hear from Stephen Sargent next from the Bigler Katusha team. Hope you're enjoying hearing from our director sporty. Stephen, Lizzie Banks is in there. She's been riding super well in this one. What were the tactics from Bigler Katusha going into today?
Well, obviously we saw in the test that we've done last week Friday that she is on form. Emma had a bit of problems with the turbo. Luckily we sorted it out. So yeah, we come in, we're quite strong. We had a bit of a plan, and let's see how it unfolds. Up to now, it looks good.
And in terms of the 3 days going into this one, the overall for Lizzie has got to be a big goal.
Correct, yeah. No, for sure. So obviously, if everything goes well, we have two teammates to back it up and to play a couple of games if that's possible. But yeah, it is important for her. I mean, it's the UK tour, so being a UK rider, we'll support her.
Well, we'll let you get back to keeping track of the racing. Thanks, Stephen. We'll try and check in with you again over the course of the next few days. If you're just joining us, welcome aboard. This is stage 1 of the ŠKODA V Women's Tour. 38.4 kilometres racing into Bury St Edmunds. Our leading group is just starting to thin down. It's been constant pressure from the gun here on our opening stage. A fairly flat stage through Suffolk, but the smart trainers of the riders does react to the GPS of the stage profile, so we do get the climbs and the descents. Tomorrow we will go to Burton Dasset, where last year we had our great hilltop finish. It was a phenomenal stage victory for Cassia Nuvia Doma. Got set up on that one, and then we will finish on stage 3 with 35 laps of a 1 kilometre circuit around Canary Wharf in London, which if this is anything to go by, Joe, 35 laps of a 1 kilometre flat crit circuit virtually, that's going to be something else.
Yes, I think that's going to be very interesting, and also there'll be quite a lot of tired legs because this virtual racing, whilst it's, I'm going to say, only an hour, it's a very, very intense hour. So by the 3rd day of this stage race, I think we're going to see a lot of sore legs and a lot of people potentially struggling in that sort of event. So I am very interested how this race will develop over the 3 days.
So Sarah Story, Anna Doherty, Leanne Ganza. The Lotto Soudal jerseys are still very much in this group. You can see the constant ebb and flow of the group. We're 18 kilometres to go, 20.29 kilometres covered so far. So good to let Joe, looking at this group already, just 18 kilometres to go. Should we make our stage predictions? Who are you going for today for a stage victory?
Oh, calling it early. I think I'm going to play it safe and go Lizzie Banks. I think she is a rider on form at the moment and a rider that's very motivated, and I think the motivation is an interesting thing at the moment. There's been a long lockdown globally. There's not been a lot of events for people to get stuck into. Most riders have been looking forward to a summer travelling around Europe, and that's not happened. But I think if you've been able to maintain motivation and maintain training during this time, that is going to really pay off in events like this. So I'm going to go Lizzie Banks.
Ooh, okay, all right. So Lizzie Banks, that's Joe Rousel's stage prediction for today. Okay, looking around this group, looking how they're going so far. Do you know what? I'm going to go for her teammate Emma Norsgaard Jorgensen. I think she could be a good bet today. She's a great sprinter, fast finisher. So yeah, I'm going to go with her, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Yeah, like you say, already had a win this year, so already had some good form. So it will be a very interesting finish if those two are able to work together.
So there's Sarah Story at the top of your picture. She's got the DS. Barney Story as her husband, a direct sportive with her. Lizzie Holden from Vizcaya Durango, the rider from the Isle of Man. Turn to your Bikus. And Marissa Bax at the bottom of your screen in that Bela Kush Pro Cycling jersey. Marissa Bax was going well, as we said. You're up there, second place in our test event last Friday. They're working hard here. Sarah Story, though, she's looking strong. She had a bit of a technical, bit of a virtual puncture the other night, and she was chasing hard to get back in, just couldn't quite. She lost a couple of 100 meters, didn't she? She couldn't quite make it up, but she could be a good one today.
Yeah, definitely. So in the test event last week, we suddenly saw Sarah Story's stats go down to 0 watts per kilo, and it looked like she was freewheeling out the back of the group. So I think there was a little bit of malfunction there with her turbo trainer communicating with the software. It got back up and running, and she did her absolute best to get back to the group, but it wasn't quite meant to be. It is very, very tough in this virtual racing to get back once you've lost contact. So I think she'll be very determined today to prove how good she is in this sort of event. We know she is incredibly strong. She put out a huge number of watts. It's a good length race for her. She of course races a lot of time trials as well, Paralympic time trial champion as well as road race and pursuit champion, so she would enjoy this sort of length distance as well.
Danny Christmas just moves her way through to the front. This part of the world has always been a popular home for the women's tour over the years. So we came here in 2014 on the first edition, stage 5. It finished into Bury St Edmunds, and it was Mariana Voss that took the stage on that occasion. Had a Georgia Bronzini and Amy Peters. And then we started here on 2015 when we went from Bury St Edmunds to Aldborough, and it was stage was won by Lizzie Deignan from Lisa Brennauer and Emma Johansson. And we remember that stage, Joe, because that day when we left Bury St Edmunds and went to Aldborough, you were on your bike in the race and I was in the team car behind.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you were our DS, and I think that was my first experience of the women's tour. It was a brutal race, but lovely finished area in Aldborough.
As you said earlier on, when the DS does the tactics in the morning, then you get out on the bike and react to everything around you. It was probably one of those days where we're like, nah, we'll just do our own thing today.
Yeah, a lot of, obviously you've always got the DS telling you what they want you to do. It's very, very different when you're on the bike in the bike race. I think a lot of the roads around this area can be very deceptive as well. You can look at the route and think it looks quite flat, and that will be quite an easy day on the bike, but not at all. It can be very heavy roads and lots of little ups and downs that are really, really wearing, especially when you're in that bunch, and the kilometres don't pass by quite as quickly as you would have liked. So yeah, tough terrain to race on, tougher than what it looks.
Is indeed the front of this group: Joss Loudon, Lizzie Banks, Sarah Story, Illy Gardner. Turnche Bikus is also up there. Lee Dixon, Katie Scott, Marissa Bax. You can see in those green jerseys. Meg Dickerson still in there for the ŠKODA Academy. So good to see her. We can just see it just clicking through here. At, the riders that are still in this group. So good to see the ŠKODA Academy riders still in there. So those dark green jerseys, riders out of the saddle as they start to attack. 14.6 kilometres to go. Those riders that did do the test event on Friday, they will know the route. They will know how this platform, the IGT platform, reacts to the attacks. Those red Team Breeze jerseys. So good to see them still in there. If you're a regular viewer of the Tour Series, you will know those Team Breeze jerseys. And we're going to go over, just talking of Team Breeze, we've got Team Breeze DS Emma Trotz. Emma, welcome. It's looking fairly brutal out there this evening.
Yeah, it looks like it, eh? I actually sent my girls a video from home where it's actually chucking it down here, saying that it's a shame that we're not actually racing on the road because the weather conditions will just add extra to this race that we've already got unfolding.
And how important do you feel it is that we not having, unfortunately, able to have the women's tour, of course, this year? How important do you think it is for cycling to be able to do this, bring this race virtually to the world?
I think it's really important. I think, like it was Leah Dixon said at the start, that it's important for the legacy of this race, that at least we've got something. For cycling fans to be able to follow some form of women's sport and for the girls to have an opportunity. So for ours, it's great to be able to race against some bigger names in the peloton. It's an opportunity that in March, when we went into lockdown, we didn't think we were going to have.
Well, we're enjoying watching the team in action. We'll let you get back to directing the team. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we can check in with you again as the race goes on. So just towards the front, just getting a little look around the group. So Rebecca Richardson is also still in there from the ŠKODA DSI Academy. I was just trying to pick out the other dark green jersey from the ŠKODA Academy. So good to see both Meg Dickinson and Rebecca Richardson are both still in there. And Rebecca is a rider, young rider who's got designs, as we said, on a pro career on the continent. Started racing as a teenager, currently works in a bike shop, so wants to head to Europe. So Faulkner Story again towards the front. Corinne Hall is still in this group, and my prediction of the day, Emma Norsgaard, is very much to the front. Few riders just on the back of the group here. Illy Gardner just moving back into the group. Amelia Sharp is the rider in there for Team Breeze, that red jersey. Norsgaard now moving through towards the front. Joe, it's quite interesting to see how the riders are kind of reacting to the game around them, because normally as a bike rider, as you said a little bit earlier on, you're in the bunch, you've got that sort of cat-like response when riders start to twitch or start to move around you. So they're doing phenomenally well to kind of keep this group together.
Yeah, exactly. So in real life, you will get probably a feel of when you think someone's looking to attack. They'll get a little bit twitchy, might be moving up the outside of the bunch, or might be following a teammate through the bunch. And you can easily think, yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on them because I think they're going to go. We can't quite have that same effect virtually, but riders are doing really well to react to things. We've seen a couple of big attacks, but they have been reacted to really quickly. So nothing significant getting away so far, but this group hugely thin from the 52 riders that started this race.
They are indeed, and those two riders, Leanne Ganser and Kristen Faulkner, that are on your screen, were sitting on the front of the group, both looking remarkably relaxed here, Joe.
Yeah, this is interesting. So this is what the other riders in the race won't be able to see. So you can have a rider in this group that isn't working too hard and sort of quite happily there, quite happily settled. Others could be working as hard as they possibly can just to stay there. And you're not going to know from the comfort of your own home how everyone else is feeling, because you can't see them and you can't sort of interpret that body language and those little sort of movements and things. So that's a big sort of difference to this sort of racing. Also, we've got riders in different time zones. So riders in America, where it's sort of probably just gone midday at the moment. Even riders at altitude, which makes a huge difference. Far harder to breathe. So it's all those sort of things are coming into play as well in this racing.
They are indeed. And in terms of your pain cave setup, as you said a little bit earlier on, the fans, it's almost even more important to make sure you keep hydrated and trying to keep cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're doing a turbo session that's not a race, you might have efforts planned and intervals and rest periods, and you might have a fan there probably and have a towel, and you sort of use those rest periods to sort of almost cool off and sort of catch your breath and have a drink and things. In a race situation, we've got pretty much an hour full gas. You need to have that pain cave set up well from the start, keeping you cool, able to stay hydrated, drinks handy, because you don't get any respite at all. And I think people that don't take that element seriously enough will really suffer, because if you are overheating, it is harder and harder to put out power output effectively. So you want to be well set up, keeping cool. We have seen a few riders outside, a few under shelter, because I think we've got some thunderstorms definitely around the UK at the moment. But again, that's another sort of tactic. Where do you want to be? Where do you feel most comfortable?
Yeah, I've just got to be careful. My setup's not too close to the biscuit tin, otherwise they tend to go during a turbo session. You've got to be careful if you're in the kitchen. Danny Christmas, you can see, is outside there. We call that the patio of power, potentially, rather than the pain cave. Heidi Franz there from the rally cycling. So that leading group still being headed by Sarah Story, Rebecca Richardson, as this race goes on. The ŠKODA Academy rider coming up towards the front. Will Danny make another move? Just outside 10 kilometres to go to the finish. If you're just joining us today, welcome aboard. This is the ŠKODA V Women's Tour Stage 1, 38.4 kilometres from Bury St into Bury St Edmunds. Our leading group from the 52 riders that started from 18 teams here on day 1 of 3 for the V Women's Tour is coming down to quite a select group of riders. You can see 2 of them from the leading group on your screen now, Danny Christmas and Heidi Franz. Those orange jerseys from Team Rally, as Danny Christmas starts to put a powerful move down the outside of the group, and everyone reacts inside 10 kilometres to go. As you said, Bury St Edmunds, it's a regular town, city for the Women's Tour, so great to see us coming back here. Watch out for those 2 Bieler Crush riders, so Marissa Bax, watch out for her. Still in that group, just in that green jersey with the lighter colours, and her teammate just moving up on the outside of the group. There's Leanne Ganzer. We saw her on your picture, on your screens moments ago. The Team Drops jerseys, those Team Drops colours coming up towards the front. Illy Gardner, Joe, over the course as Joss Loudon just makes a little move. I'm so impressed by Illy Gardner, young rider from Great Britain, not phased at all by any of the big names in this race.
Yeah, exactly. So just 20 years old, Illy Gardner, finding this quite motivating for her to have this virtual racing during lockdown, and seems to really getting stuck in and really embracing it. There'll be some riders that perhaps don't embrace this as much, but she has really embraced it and really got stuck in. So that is really good to see. It's good for the development of young British riders to have this sort of opportunity, this sort of exposure, and to really compare themselves to some of the biggest names in women's road racing.
So we're going to check in with Rachel Henneman from Team Tidco, Silicon Valley Bank. Rachel, thanks for joining us. What the team? How are they reacting to the world of virtual racing?
We've been at it for quite a number of weeks now, and I think at first it was a little odd, but they're natural competitors, natural athletes, and they enjoy competing. So if the virtual stage is how we have to compete now, then that's what they're doing.
And as a director sportive, how much input have you had going into this? Can you have a similar approach to when you're racing on the road?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a little bit different doing it virtually to doing it on the road. On the road I have experience of having raced most of the races, and I've obviously never raced myself on any of the virtual platforms. So there's definitely differences, but I have kind of the equivalent of the team car and the race radio set up with various screens watching the race, and we get to see the profiles of the courses beforehand. So there's a lot of similarities to in real life racing.
Well, thanks for joining us. Good luck to the team this week. We'll try and check in with you as we go on. It really is hotting up now. 7.5 kilometres to go. Sarah Story, Illy Gardner on the front. Emma Norsgaard is also still very much to the front. You can see this group in terms of the attacks. No one has managed to put in a huge move to get off the front, but the peloton has just splintered under the pressure of the relentless pace at the front. Illy Gardner and Joss Loudon as Lizzie Holden from the Isle of Man and Biscaya Durango comes through, swinging left and right through these corners. I think that's what's interesting about the virtual platforms as well, Joe, because when we come to things like Canary Wharf, the real roads, we're racing on the kind of magic roads, but when we get into the real roads, the physics that are within the sort of game platforms that we're racing on here, they do say it means that you can't take a corner at 75 kilometers an hour, that the physics is applied to the way that the rider reacts within the game.
Yeah, I think that will be really interesting to see how the riders respond to that and how it affects the racing. I'm quite intrigued to see how that one goes as well. And normally when you're racing a crit, positioning, cornering ability, they're all absolutely crucial. So it'll be interesting how, like you say, that the physics works with the virtual reality and how that responds to the riders' smart trainers, and how much we find them having to accelerate out the saddle on their turbo trainer like they would in a real crit sprinting out of corners.
So Kirsten Faulkner from Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, we just heard from her director sportive. There's the gap that this leading group has now opened up over the rest of the riders. 32 kilometers and counting has covered, just 6.2 kilometers to go. We've climbed 234 meters. It's a relatively flat stage through Suffolk today. Sarah Story and Corinne Hall for Story Racing still very much to the front of this one. You can see plenty of Union Jacks in there. We've got plenty of representatives in there from the USA, some Dutch flags, some Danish flags. There's a 4-rider shot there. Same Sarah Story at the top. Leanne Ganzer has been looking strong. Lizzie Banks at the bottom and Marissa Bax. Leanne Ganzer, for me, Joe, when you look, when we get this camera shot, and we're lucky, as you said, the other riders can't see this. Leanne Ganzer is looking superbly strong.
She is. So we saw her seated there, just putting the power through the pedals, very little lateral movement, really strong core. And that is really important in bike racing in general, but I think you can really spot the difference even more so on the turbo trainer when you've got those shots like that. A rider who's looking quite still and just putting that power straight down should look very much in control there.
So you're still sticking with Lizzie Banks for the win?
I'm still sticking. I don't think I can change at 5k to go really, but I'm sticking for now.
Good to see the Ross Hogeboom is the rider from Bielefeld. They've got all 3 of their riders still in this group. Lizzie Holden, the sole representative in there from Biscaya Durango, just still only 22 is Lizzie Holden, and has had a good start to the season as a rider again that had some race kilometres in the legs, missed out on a stage of Tour of Valenciana earlier on in the season. She was way in a breakaway group of 2 riders, narrowly missed out on a stage victory in that one. I remember Lizzie Holden commentating on her way back quite a few years ago when she was over, took a runner-up in the Island Games in the Criterium and the road race and the time trial, the Island Games. It was on Jersey at that point. Always steps up, flies that flag for the Isle of Man. I think that's a good move this year for Lizzie Holden, getting out there into a European team, but starting to get some attacks here. Bielefeld, Roos Hogeboom is the rider that's come through towards the front. Heidi Franz in that orange jersey from Rally Cycling. 4.2 kilometers to go. Corinne Hall still looking good here. Leanne Ganzer sitting in 4th. The front, the ebb and flow of the peloton here on the opening stage of the ŠKODA V Women's Tour. Let's see if Story Racing can work together here to set this one up. They're still very much to the front.
Yeah, I think the question of working together is a really interesting one for virtual racing. It's very different to racing in real life, and how you can coordinate that when you're distanced, physically distanced from each other, and also sort of been able to work it out when you can't sort of give those sort of nods and those little sort of nudges to each other in the peloton. But I always think strength in numbers is a good thing. If nothing else, psychologically it's a good thing, and we have got some really strong riders here for Story Racing up there in this bunch.
So Lizzie Holden at the top of your screen. Roos Hogerboom is the rider at the top right of your picture. You can see her working hard there. Look at the effort that she is making. Joss Loudon just at the bottom of your screen there for Drops, and then Corin Hall for Story Racing. Great shot here, just shows the effort that the different riders are making. Lizzie Holden's looking very, very smooth here.
Yeah, it's interesting to see who has got that poker face nailed and who is sort of really showing the effort. Seen a couple of helpers there as well, which can be really important virtually when it is getting hot and it is getting difficult. Probably less than 5 minutes of racing to go now, just over 3 kilometres left to race, and a very select group here. Some big name riders, some up and coming riders, and it's all getting very exciting. Joss Loudon there we just saw on the screen, of course a bronze medalist from the World Championships team time trial for Great Britain back in Harrogate back in September last year, so doing very well there for the Drops team up in this group. So lots of exciting riders here.
Danny Christmas has just put in an enormous attack, a huge attack by Danny Christmas of Lotto Soudal. That's what Joss Loudon was reacting to. 2.9 kilometres to go on our test stage. Danny Christmas made a move in a similar position, and Kirsten Faulkner from Tipco Silicon Valley Bank is trying to gradually claw her way across the gap. 2 riders going clear, Joss Loudon and Danny Christmas, chased by the American Kirsten Faulkner. Meg Dickerson coming across the gap here for the ШКODA Academy team as Faulkner gets up to that leading group. But that was a huge move there by Danny Christmas. Was that her race winning bid there, Joe? Would that have been the final move by Danny Christmas? But she's just weaving her way back up towards the front. We're heading towards the final 2 kilometres. It's the 2 Americans, Faulkner and Ganser, that are up towards the front here. So good to see them at the head of the race. It's just swinging backwards and forwards. Turn to Beatkus is from Lotto Soudal. Also on the front, Scott from Cams Tafosi comes through. This is lining up for a beautiful sprint, Joe.
It really is. That was a big move there by Danny Christmas and Joss Loudon, but shut down quite quickly. Riders kept coming across in 1s and 2s, and we are all back together now. Now with less than 2k to go, we might see another big attack, but I think we're going to be heading for a sprint.
Amelia Sharp from Team Breeze, the ŠKODA Academy riders. Rebecca Richardson just moves up on one side of the group as her teammate Meg Dickerson moves up on the outside. There's Danny Christmas, Kristen Faulkner and Leanne Gansder. Danny Christmas, big move, reacted. Kristen Faulkner reacted nicely to her. There's the American on the outside of the group, out of the saddle. Will anyone else manage to get clear? 1.5 kilometres to go. Does anyone have one last ditch effort to try and get clear? Lizzie Banks won the test event in a bunch sprint. Emma Norsgaard is also up there. The ŠKODA Academy jersey just moving up on the outside. Kirsten Scott is also in there, swinging backwards and forwards. Hogerboom is the rider on the front. Christmas is still there, so is Scott. Dickerson comes through for the ŠKODA Academy. These 2 ŠKODA Academy riders here, Joe, are riding phenomenally well in this company.
They are riding brilliantly, so of course mentored by Dame Sarah Story, who we've already mentioned being a power monster. So exciting up and coming riders, and a huge opportunity for them to race in this level of event, and really getting stuck in and making the most of it here, riding really impressively.
Leanne Ganser in that orange rally jersey moves up. Everyone's reacting to the front of the group. Leah Dixon comes through. 800 meters to go. We start to swing left and right as we head in towards the finish. The riders will see the finish banners ahead of them. They'll know they're getting in towards Bury St Edmunds. Sarah Story, Joss Loudon also up towards the front. Danny Christmas is still there. Amelia Sharp, Turntia Bekus, Leanne Ganser are your order. They're all still very much to the front. Dickerson comes through here. The Bela Cruz jerseys as Illy Gardner in that yellow and red Cam's Tifosi jersey comes up towards the front. 500 metres to go. Just starting to get the start of the sprint here. Marissa Bax has got some work to do. It's Christmas on the front. Loudon, Banks, Gardner, Tacey, Dixon and Sharp are there with the two Americans. Faulkner and Ganza up towards the front. Can the Drops team now try and lead this one out? Illy Gardner still the rider on the front. 300 metres now towards the front. Here comes Lizzie Banks up towards the front. Lizzie Banks, 200 metres to go. Opens up the power. Danny Christmas is chasing her hard. Is it going to be an opening stage victory for her as they come through? Faulkner comes through just on the line. Are they going to snatch it? Danny Christmas snatches it on the line. Illy Gardner, Amelia Sharp. Gutsy move by Lizzie Banks. Tried to do exactly the same as she did in the test event, but the first stage we thought that would have been the race winning move with a couple of kilometres to go, but Danny Christmas comes through, takes it from Illy Gardner and Amelia Sharp. Joe, what a finish.
That was an incredible finish. At 200 metres to go, I thought Lizzie Banks had it. I thought, I've nailed this prediction. But Danny Christmas, perfectly timed sprint there. She put in a huge effort just a few kilometres ago to try and get away. It didn't work out, but timed that sprint to absolute perfection and taken the win today. Ever so impressive.
And look at the effort. That shows just how hard she had to work. Let's go down and chat to our winner, Danny. What a sprint. How much did that attack with a couple of kilometres to go take out the legs? Clearly not a lot.
Well, I had a few times where I lost attention a bit and I had to do a sprint probably bigger than that to get back to the bunch. So yeah, the legs were nipping a bit at the end, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun to do. So yeah, it was good.
That seemed pretty relentless right from the gun. I mean, no one, you tried a few times to get away. No one really got clear. The peloton was just shredding behind you under the pressure on the front.
Yeah, it was hard from the start, but yeah, as I say, you really have to pay attention because as soon as there's a small gap, you have to push some really big watts to get back to the bunch. So yeah, I think there were quite a few people that caught out that way. So yeah, top tip for next stage tomorrow, pay attention. Yeah.
Great job today. Well done. There's our winner, Danny Christmas, takes the opening stage. I think we're going to hear from the director sportif now.
No, she put so much effort in this. Oh.
Lisbeth and Marty here. That was a great stage victory there for Lotto Soudal. You got to be super happy with that one.
Yeah, definitely. She put so much effort in it to making everything work the past few days. She did a lot of races to test the RGT program. So I should have known she was very motivated. And yeah, if you can close it up with a win, that's even more. Yeah,
great opening stage.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. Great win for Lotto Soudal ladies today. That's Lisbeth de Vocht, who's the director sportif of the Lotto Soudal ladies team. What a great opening stage that we've had here in the virtual women's tour. Lisbeth, final question. Are you going to be able to defend that jersey tomorrow?
I'm sure we're going to do everything that's in our power to do so. We have with Tunch also and Danique, they're really team players, so we will do everything possible to make it happen.
Great job. See you tomorrow. Great race today. Joanna, that was a phenomenal opening stage, wasn't it? Danny Christmas, a really well-deserved victory.
Yeah, exactly. And a rider, like I said before, she isn't afraid to attack. She isn't afraid to get stuck in, not scared of reputations. And it's really lovely to see all that hard work and all that effort pay off. And as her DS Lisbeth de Vocht said, she's motivated and she's done her homework. She's been using the RGT platform. And all of that really plays off pays off virtually the same as it does in real life road racing. So, you know, she's done her homework and she is motivated. And I think that is key at the moment for this racing. There's been a lot of riders locked down, in some countries not even able to leave their flat or their house. And it's really showing who has been able to train hard through this period, keep that motivation and keep a focus. And this is going to be a really interesting 3 days of racing. Very different course tomorrow and very different course again on Friday. So could suit different riders. But we've got a very motivated British rider there, Danny Christmas.
We have indeed. And tomorrow's stage, in terms of you interpret the power data so well and so quickly, what sort of numbers can we expect to see tomorrow? And for anyone that's interested, what sort of numbers are we expecting to see on that Burton Dassett climb?
Oh, good question. I think we're going to see a similar fast start and sort of similar riders putting out sort of between 3 and 5 watts per kilo generally in that peloton. But as we go up the climb, sort of 6, 7 watts per kilo, we're not going to see quite sort of 10 watts per kilo like we were seeing in the sprint today, unless it's the actual sprint finish. So it's more of a sort of sustained hard power output rather than a big burst. So that will be really interesting as well.
Let's have a look back at that finish. Let's take you through what was an incredible finish. Joe, as you said, coming in towards the line, your stage prediction of Lizzie Banks was looking great right up until the final 50 metres or so.
Yeah, less than 200 metres to go. You know, she made that move around the 200 metres to go mark. Drew out a huge gap. We saw her watts per kilo go right up to 10 watts per kilo. And I thought, wow, she's got this. You couldn't see anybody else in that shot at all. But other riders just really timed their sprint to perfection. And we just saw a few riders whiz past her. I think Lizzie Banks ended up finishing in 6th place. But Danny Christmas absolutely timing that sprint to perfection, even with those early attacks in her legs.
Jan, indeed, let's run you through as they came in towards the line. This was the move here. Danny Christmas, big attack. That was the earlier attack by Danny Christmas. Joss Loudon reacted. Joe, when you make that sort of big move just before the end of a stage, it takes a lot, doesn't it, for the legs to recover and then go again and have that sprint at the end, because a lot of the time when you're out on the road, when you make that move with a couple of kilometres to go, that's it, isn't it? Game over, legs are done, no more power left for a sprint.
Exactly. The recovery was very impressive. We saw sort of 7 to 8 watts per kilo there for Danny Christmas and for Joss Loudon, making a huge move, but not quite meant to be. So I think the recovery there is probably the most impressive thing for me, that she was able to make that effort. But then I think probably quite a quick realization that it wasn't working and wasn't going to be the race-winning move, and able to sort of change your tactics quickly and say, right, okay, I've tried that, didn't quite work out, now I need to go to plan B.
One of the riders that really has impressed me today as well is Rebecca Richardson from the ŠKODA Academy. She ended up finishing in 8th place in that, and that's what I think is the beauty of this sort of racing. The development riders, the young riders, the Illy Gardners and those sort of riders are it's giving them that opportunity. We were looking at the finish there, but we were about 4Ks out from the finish, so apologies for that. We were looking at that. We wanted a little replay of that sprint finish, and here we go. So in terms of the tour going forward, this sort of racing, that our e-racing, our virtual racing, is it going to develop a new type of rider, a different type of rider that really does excel at this kind of racing?
I think it definitely can. It's about being able to apply that power on a turbo trainer. I think everyone that cycles will know it's easier to apply power out on the road. It takes a really good sort of pedaling technique, smooth pedaling technique, to put that power out on your turbo trainer and really go deep when you're on your own and solo and just watching a screen, rather than having riders side by side and elbow to elbow with you.
And you see those numbers we were talking about in terms of Lizzie Banks and that power. Big numbers. I'd love to see what their peak power output would be in that sprint.
Yeah, I think anybody putting anywhere over 10 watts per kilo out at any point is particularly impressive. So I really did think there at 200 metres to go that she had it, but not quite meant to be. Just went a little tiny bit early, but still very impressive.
Well, a great first stage. Remember, it's 3 days. From Joanna Rousel and myself, Martin McDonald. Make sure you join us tomorrow for stage 2 when we head to Burton Dasset Country Park. Hope you enjoyed stage 1. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.